Hey Martin, how are you?
Hey Brett, hanging out in my closet, having a good time. How about you?
Pretty good. Was just thinking, we previously did an episode of the Serverless Toolbox where we worked with the Snip Snap Candy Company who had all of their ingredients in a Google Sheets document, and they wanted to create a REST API that used the data in the sheets as its data. And I was thinking, this would be cool to do more of a deeper dive and actually walk through all the steps, skipping nothing, to show how we did that. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. The code, we walked through that in the previous video, but here we can actually do all the steps and set up the permissions and everything. Let's do it.
Before we dive into the code, let's take a look at what we're actually going to build so you can see what the end of this is. So we've got a Google Sheet here, and this is how SnipSnap manages their inventory. Anytime ingredients go in or out of the warehouse, they come and use this. And it's really nice because everyone kind of knows how to use Google Sheets. There's a mobile app, so you can use it on your mobile phone. You can do it on a computer. You don't have to build a specific admin interface to this. It already has a UI built in. And so what we're going to do is teach you how to create your own REST API that uses the data in this sheet as its data source.
Cool. So let's hit the API here at 6486, and we'll see if we get some JSON back for that. There it is, 21 kilos of fairy dust.
All right, this seems like this is going to be a really cool thing to build, so let's get into it.
All right, let's dive in. So you said sheets, right?
Yes, so let's make a new sheet, I think.
I'll make a new sheet. I'll hit that URL, sheet.new.
And I noticed the URL you use there, sheet.new. There's a whole bunch of those if you just go to your browser and you type sheet.new, doc.new. It's actually a URL that just redirects to creating a new Google Sheet or a new Google Doc. Super handy.
Yeah, I use it all the time, doc.new, so often. Okay, so here's their warehouse. Rather than have everybody see us laboriously typing in a bunch of fake data, I've prepared some here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Also, I love the use of the word laboriously there. Well done.
Very good. I'm doing my best. So here we have it. We have, 1,000 lines of candy ingredients. We have an ID that we will use in our API. For each row, we have a name, amount, what unit that is, and the warehouse location. So we're going to hit this. We're going to put a REST API in front of this, right?
Yes. So when we go to our REST API and ask for ingredient, 5016, that'll give us back cane sugar. So we're going to need two pieces of data from this sheet in order to connect to it and talk to it. One is the sheet ID, which you can actually see up there in the URL. It's kind of this big, long alphanumeric, one AUC, just is generated by, by Google Sheets randomly. And
so will you remember it, or should we save it in the notes?
I've already forgotten the 3 letters. There we go. Yeah, we should probably save it.
Okay, very good. And you said 2 pieces?
And then the second one is because you can have multiple tabs in your sheet, we need to specify which tab. So there we've got one called ingredients, and that value is literally what is the text that you have typed in that tab. So in this case, ingredients.
Okay, very good. So sheet ID and tab ID, we have those. We've taken note of them. Now we're going to hit this from GCP. So I guess we need a new GCP project, huh?
Yeah, let's create a Google Cloud project.
Yeah. Very good. So we call it Snap Warehouse API, perhaps. See if there is some SnipSnap company that has snapped that up already, or if it's available.
It's already, yeah. Stolen our cool project name.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Okay, I feel we should probably have had an error message by now if somebody else had taken that project name.
Cool, done.
Okay, good. So, very good. Project name. Oh, project ID. This one we'll probably need to, won't we?
Yep.
Yeah, let's just save that one. Okay, so we have our setup data here. And now, what do we then do next?
One thing we might want to go ahead and do now is we need to turn on the Sheets API. So we're going to access this programmatically, like rather than through a browser. And so by default, most of the APIs are disabled just for security. So you have to go in and specifically turn on them. So let's turn on the Sheets API.
Yes, let's do that. Sheet. Okay, Google Sheets API. There it is. Off by default, nice and secure. And now it's on. I'm working in a project.
All right, I think that's enough. Let's get in some code. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been waiting. When do we get to the code? So we've heard SnipSnap. Their developers are familiar with Node. So how about we create a Node project?
Yeah, so we'll do this npm init, which creates a package.json file, and a package.json file just has metadata about your app. So things like what are the dependencies in your app, how do you start your app. So Martin here is typing npm install Google APIs, and Google APIs is the name of the npm package that you can use in Node to talk to just about any API for Google, including Google Sheets. It's a nice little client library with some useful JavaScript friendly methods and things.
Look,
and then
there it
yeah,
appeared.
there you go. Cool. And then let's also install maybe Express, so because we're building an HTTP app, a web app, a REST API, and so that lets us do HTTP pretty easily. And while that's installing, I'm actually going to go in the package.json, and I'm going to take out this test entry, and I'm going to change that to start. And so the start command is just a standard npm way to say how do you actually start up your app? What is the command to start your app? And in this case, node index.js. Index.js will be the file that we put our code in.
Ah, right. Yep. So we have the start script, and that is by running npm start. That is how we start our application.
Yes.
It will run node index.js. We don't have an index.js, do we?
I guess that would help. Yeah,
that would help.
Let's maybe create that.
Okay, we have an index.js. What do we need to put in it?
All right, cool. Let me hop on the keyboard here, and I will say let's create our Express app, and we'll be off to the races.
Yeah. So at the top, as usually when you do programming, you do your imports or includes in a node. They're called require. So here we're pulling in Google APIs on the first line, and at the Express HTTP handling library on the second line. And here on the third line, we're getting creating a new Express app that can listen. And so now we need to set it up to listen, and we do that by first checking what port we should do. The Cloud Run environment, what we're going to use in a bit, uses the port environment variable. So we'll read that one, listen to that port, or if that hasn't been set, we'll listen to 8080. On line 6, we actually start listening. The app starts listening to the port that has been set, and then there's a debug printout there that just shows that, okay, we got this far in the code. The Express app is up and listening. But at this point, Bret, it's listening on 8080. What happens if an HTTP call comes in on 8080?
Yeah, so we haven't actually set up any specific endpoints to listen to. So let's set up an endpoint if you get an ingredient by ID, and we'll just do that at, say, the root URL.
Ah, right. So here, the code here on line 10 will run if we hit the URL of the service / an ID. And that ID will be the candy as the ingredient ID. So just going back here, so for example, we'll hit it with /6486, and we expect to get the fairy dust row back. And first pull out the ID from the request, put it in the ID variable, then get the ingredient somehow from a spreadsheet. Ingredient goes into this variable. If that is not set, if get ingredient returns null, then we'll send back a 404 to the caller that, hey, we did not find that ingredient with that ID. Now, and we'll return here. Now, if this doesn't happen, so in other words, if ingredient has been set to something, then we'll return success JSON down here, which will have a status and a data element. So let's see. I see here you took a nice little shortcut and just say, get ingredient. That is where
Exactly. So
that's where the real action will be, huh?
exactly. So what I think we should do is I'll just have someone else come and do the hard work.
Somebody else, yeah.
Put in return
I love
and all.
this. Yeah, I love this way of programming. You write the sort of the high level code. You just write function calls all over the place. You assume that those functions will eventually be written by somebody. And so here we have a dummy get ingredient. It always returns null for now. We'll put real code in there to read from a spreadsheet eventually.
And so what I think we could also do here is have a let's just run this locally, and then we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
It's not doing anything, but I like to run it at this point just to make sure like the skeleton of your app is working. You know, that it's actually, we didn't forget any parentheses, that it's actually starting up and listening for HTTP traffic and curling, even though it's not actually like talking to the sheet yet or anything like that.
Yeah. So we run it locally. It's a nice way of doing it. npm start. And npm start, as we saw, that will run node index.js. And here we it's listening to the port. So we got down to line 7 in the code. Now, how do we get this handler to execute here on line 10?
Yeah, so we could go in the browser to localhost port 8080, but I'll just do it here in the terminal with the curl command. So I'll say curl localhost 8080, and then it doesn't really matter what ID we give it because it doesn't exist.
Yep, candy ingredient ID there, not found. Yeah, and that is expected because we get ingredient down here returns null. But good, yes. So we've exercised the application. We know that everything is in the right place. Things can call each other. And we have a good skeleton of an app here.
Yeah, totally. So should we fill in this get ingredient function?
Yeah, should we see if we can get a volunteer for that?
Yeah, exactly. If you're watching this and you want to fill this out, you can email us no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'll do it.
Cool. So just to kind of talk through a little bit of what while Martin is typing. So when we talk to the Sheets API or just Google APIs in general, there's an authentication that needs to happen. Like, can you talk to the API? Who are you? And so there's some helper methods here. So we've got google.auth.getClient. And so we're going to pass in some values. And what it will do is it will include this authentication object with every request you make to the server. We're going to say we want the scope. We need to be able to access spreadsheets. So Google API is spreadsheets. One thing to point out, when we're running this app in Cloud Run will take care of automatically setting your app's identity in the environment. So when it runs in Cloud Run, it has a sense of an identity. It runs as a certain service account. So who is this app? So you can control what can it see, what can it not see, and things like that. So Cloud Run will set that up for us automatically. We don't have to put it in our code. And similarly, if we're going to run it locally, there's a way to set that locally without having to put it in the code. We won't do that in this video, but we'll do another video where we show you how to set that up locally, which is just nice for doing like more iterative development. So you can actually talk to the services in the cloud as an identity, and it's all authenticated and stuff like that. And then beyond that, so Martin just said, all right, we're going to connect to the Sheets API version 4, include that auth object we just built. And now we're going to actually get some of the values from Google Sheets. So we're going to get do a get here, and it takes 2 values. One is the spreadsheet ID, which is that big long alphanumeric value we saw, and then there's the range. So there's a couple parts to the range. One is the name of the tab that we used, so the tab ID, which we'll also get from an environment variable here. And then we also need to ask for specific columns. So the columns, I think, in our spreadsheet were A through E. So we're just going to get all of those values. It'll be a little bit of a brute force. We're just going to pull them down, but 1,000 values isn't a ton. So not a big deal. And then we'll just literally manually iterate through each of them to see if it matches the ID that we're asking for. So this get ingredient ID takes an ID in the as a parameter to the function. And so we're just going to iterate through. We know that the first row, the first column rather, is the ID in the spreadsheet. And so if that matches the ID that we get sent in the function, then we know, aha, we have found the right ingredient. And we're going to create a JSON object here, mapping, the first column to ID, the second column to name, amount, and so forth. And so we'll return this as a nice object with actually labeled properties instead of just row 2 and 3 and so forth. And yeah, looks like that's about it. I think warehouse location is our last one.
Yeah. And what happens if this if never fires? So we don't hit the return here.
Right. So if that doesn't happen, it'll just fall through the bottom of the function. And so by default, essentially, JavaScript node will it'll be like returning null.
And if we return null, then we'll get the 4.4 here. So if we don't find that ID in the spreadsheet, we'll return 4.4 to the client.
Exactly. And actually, I'm going to take out this to do because it is
done.
Done.
To done. I love it.
All
right, cool. So I would love to see this running in the cloud. How do we do that?
All right, so we created our Google Cloud project, but we need to actually deploy it to Cloud Run. So there are two things to be aware of when you're running an app in Cloud Run. One, Martin already mentioned, your app needs to listen for traffic on the port environment variable, and we did that. And the second one is you need to compile your app into a container. And so we'll walk through a little bit of what that looks like. The first thing you need to build a container is you need to tell the system, how do I build it? What are the steps? And that's in a file called the Docker file. So let me hop on the keyboard here and I'll type some commands in the Docker file.
Yeah, so the first line in the Docker file is to tell Docker here what the base image we should use. There is one called Node 12 Slim that we like. It runs Node 12. All the libraries are set up to run Node 12 correctly, and it's a slimmed down container, so it builds and deploys a little faster. Then the rest of this file is just a recipe for how to build the container. So what the working directory is, then to build the container, we need to copy package.json and package lock.json. We need to run npm install. We need to copy all those files. And finally, we need to run, or the build process, I should say, needs to run npm start, because that is the entry point of the application. Now, I don't have Docker on my laptop here, Bret. How do we deal with that?
Yes. So funny you should ask. So there is a tool in Google Cloud called Cloud Build, which lets you essentially build containers in the cloud. So you don't have to have Docker. So what we're going to do is actually submit this to Cloud Build. So it'll build it in the cloud.
Right. I really like building in the cloud like this because you can set this up as part of your CI/CD pipeline, and then your whole team of developers will get consistent builds because they all happen on the same type of machine in the cloud, and it's a machine that is a little more powerful perhaps than a developer laptop. So, and then you'll have the container up there in the cloud and ready to deploy as well. So you don't need to spend a lot of time uploading them. So it's nice to have it in the cloud. So here what happened was that it created the tarball of all of these files we have on our local machine, uploaded them all to the cloud, and now it is, Cloud Build wasn't enabled in our project, so Bret enabled that, and now it is starting the build up in the cloud. Now, Bret, this Docker file here, I saw you typed it pretty quickly. Are there any special things in here for our app that is different in our app from other Node apps?
So yeah, I would actually say this is pretty much the exact Docker file I use in almost every Node app that I built. We're not doing anything crazy. We don't have any custom libraries we need installed in the system or anything like that. So this is actually the Docker file I use for almost all my Node apps. Now, if you need something custom that's not in this container by default, like ImageMagick or FFmpeg or some kind of library like that, you can actually set it in this Docker file. You can tell it to install those. But I use basically this exact one for just about all my Node apps. Yeah.
Yeah, I copy paste this 98% of my apps.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, cool. The build is done. Now, this did not generate a container on my local laptop, right?
Yes, and it's up in the cloud in Google. So the GCR that I put as a destination is called Google Container Registry. So if we go to Container Registry, we should be able to see it.
Look at it. There it is.
Ta-da.
And if I click on it, we see we have one version of it. It was created just now, and it has been auto-tagged with latest. I'll put my own tag on it as well. Let's call it 1.0.
Oh, dramatic this is. We're going live. This is straight to a real app. Cool.
For those brave souls who want to run version 1.0 of our API, yes.
Yeah.
Now, so here we will have the versions of this container. This is sort of our container registry for our project, but this code is not actually running anywhere, is it?
Right. So this is just like a compiled container image. It's not actually running. So let's run it in, Cloud Run. Run in Cloud Run. Ha ha ha.
And we could run it on Google Compute Engine or Kubernetes Engine in your own cluster, whatever, many different places. But we are Serverless Toolbox. We like running code on managed services in the cloud, right?
Yeah, let's go fully serverless. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Agree.
So here we won't run it on Cloud Run for Anthos. We'll actually run it on fully managed. And then let's see, you're in New York. I'm in California. Should we meet in Iowa?
Yeah, I think somehow if you average our geographies, it's probably about Iowa. So
probably about Iowa. Yeah, sounds good. Let's see here. Snap REST API. What's what we will call our service. We'll open it up for everybody. We can also require authentication. We won't do that in this one. Just keep it simple. Now we need to tell it what container. So here we have a list of all our containers. We only have one version 1.0. Should we use this one?
Yes, the most dramatic version.
Yeah.
Number.
Now, I have a question here. In our code, I remember that we had, let's see, where was it? Here. We had some environment variables that we needed to have set. Tab ID and sheet ID. Where do we set them in the cloud?
Yeah, and so there's a couple ways that we could have set those values. One, we could just hard code it in the app, but that's not a great idea. So instead we want to pick it up from the environment. You can do the environment variables in your container, like in your Docker file, but that's not a great idea either, because then as you move that container from place to place, those values might need to change and you need to rebuild your container. So instead we can actually have Cloud Run insert those values as environment variables. So when your app turns on and when your app starts running, those environment variables have already been set by Cloud Run. So here we go to variables and secrets, and we'll do put in our sheet ID and also our tab ID.
Let's see. Do you remember the sheet ID?
One awk. That was the only part that I remember. Yeah.
Very good.
And one thing that's I think useful or important to point out is that when you set these environment variables in a deploy of a Cloud Run service, when you deploy it again, version 2, version 3, version 4, you don't have to specify the environment variables every time unless you want to or unless those change. And so that's nice. You don't have to actually specify it or set them back up. And if you're using the command line way of deploying, it'll remember them as well, which is nice if you're doing a CI/CD system or something. You don't want to actually have to set those values each time.
Yeah, right. We clicked through everything here, but typically in a production kind of situation, you would use CI/CD and command line to deploy. You can do all this by command line.
Yeah.
It looks like we got an HTTPS address set up for us here for a service automatically. That's nice.
Yeah, so that is nice. So Cloud Run will automatically give you a fully qualified domain name and an SSL cert, so you can do HTTPS traffic right away without having to do any other gateways or setup or anything like that. So that's super nice.
And then you can, of course, customize this URL as well.
Yeah, if you have your own domain. Yep.
We'll go with the default one. Should we hit it?
Let's do it.
All right.
What do you think? What are the odds of success here?
I think they're very low.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 20%.
Yeah, 1.0. I agree. I feel a little more optimistic, maybe 35%.
Okay.
Maybe 30%.
Oh, cannot get. Okay, that doesn't count. Our code was written to assume that it would be URL and then / NID, right?
Yes. So wouldn't count that as an error. So we'll
get we're not going to count that. So I'm hoping to get out this first line here of the spreadsheet, 6486. So I'll paste that in at the end of the URL. This is suspiciously slow, Brett.
Ooh, yeah. When it takes a while to respond, that's not a good sign. So maybe we should talk about how to get into the error logs.
Okay, logs. Very good. I
Yeah.
spend so much time here. These
Oh
loads
my
are
gosh.
amazing.
Yeah, totally agree. One of the things that I that's important that is useful, I think that it's called in that logging and Stackdriver logging does is it will automatically pick up all of the console output or the errors from your Cloud Run app automatically, and so you can search them and filter and things like that. And here we've see a stack trace in there somewhere that
Ah,
probably
yeah,
has
yeah.
our error.
Unhandled promise rejection warning.
All right.
That sounds serious. Error. The caller does not have permission.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Okay, actually, this makes sense. Because if you think about it, the app we wrote literally is just some random app on the internet. Why would it have access to your personal Google Sheet? Honestly, thank goodness it couldn't get to it. Like
Yeah.
that would be that would be concerning. But of course, it's secure and private by default, as it should be,
Cool.
which is good. But
Yeah.
we need
So
to share it.
here
Yeah.
I'll just share it. I mean, if I were to share it with you, I could just type Brett here in your email address, but I'm not sharing it with you. Who am I sharing this spreadsheet with?
Yeah, so we need to share it with the app, and so the app runs. It has an identity, and it's called a service account, this particular service account, which we can see. So if we go back to here we go. If we go back to Cloud Run, and we click in there, we should be able to see what identity it's running as.
Permissions, maybe.
I'm trying to remember.
Ah, yeah, here it is.
Yes.
It's running as this account, at the default compute account, right?
Yes. Yep. So and which actually it has an email address.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, no one's probably. I don't think it has an email box, but
Who
which is
reads
actually
those
is
emails?
nice. But it's nice because that means from Sheets you can actually share it as an email address.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
You can read
this is
only.
very nice. So notice how in our code we didn't have to put in an ID or password or any weird things like that. We just say use the default account that this runs as, and we know what account that is.
And I feel like we should probably point out the default account that it runs at has a very broad permissions to your project. It can access Firestore and BigQuery, and it can write files to cloud storage. And so when you're building your app, that's very convenient. So it's super easy. You don't have to set up any extra permissions. But in general, it is a very good practice to create a service account specifically for this service, a brand new one, and only give it the permissions that it needs to do its job and nothing else. And that way, if your app gets compromised, it's not running as something that can just, set up virtual machines to do Bitcoin mining and just go crazy in your project. We're not going to create a service account just for this app, I think just for time, but you should.
Maybe we should make another video on that, Brett. What do you think?
Ooh, that is a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Totally.
Let's do that. Okay. So good. So now we gave the service account access to the spreadsheet. Should we hit it again?
Let's do it. What is your odds of success?
Odds 65% maybe.
Oh, nice. I was going to say 50, maybe coin flip. Let's see.
Okay, 50. Oh, look at
right.
that. Wow. That was
Cool.
quick too.
Yeah, that was fast. Nice.
Let's actually
let's prove that this is real. Let's go get another one maybe.
Yeah. I'll pick the last one. It was very quick. It was the first one in the spreadsheet. I'll just hit the very last one. Oh, wow, that was quick too. So you said prove that it's actually reading the latest values.
Yeah. So I was
right.
going to say maybe let's change some value in there and then show when it updates or when we request the API again that it's actually changed.
Right. So the fairy dust here, we have 21 kilos of it. So that's great. Now, let's say we made a lot of some kind of sticky candy here. So we used up 6 of those kilos. We're down to 15 kilos of fairy dust for Snip Snap. And so the folks in the warehouse, they updated the spreadsheet. And now we want to make sure that their production planning system that's hitting the REST API can get the latest. And sure enough, 15 kilos left in the warehouse.
Oh, nice. Well, I hope that whoever ended up with those 6 kilos of fairy dust, that's not really a phrase that sounds a little sketchy, but actually it's delicious.
It is, yeah. Cool. So we have a way for folks in the warehouse, folks in the company to enter data, update data. We have a way for other systems to read through a REST API. This is pretty good. And this is a good way of dealing with like smaller data sets. We have 1,000 lines here. What if they had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of lines, Brett?
Yeah, once you have data that is that big, or you have a system that needs to do a bunch of sort of reads and writes and updates where things can maybe step on each other, probably you should consider using a real database like Cloud Firestore or Cloud SQL or something like that. But for little small utilities like this, it's kind of neat because you don't have to build an admin UI. In this example, people in the SnipSnap warehouse, they can update it from their phone using the Google Sheets app. Everyone kind of understands how Google Sheets works. So it's kind of a nice way to be able to access that data that's in Sheets.
Yeah, right. Cool. The API is up and running. SnipSnap they're very happy, and I think it may be lunchtime for us. Any particular ingredient looks appetizing here for you, Brett?
Yeah, so I might take my 6 kilos of fairy dust and maybe add some leprechaun juice, a couple gallons of that, and we'll see what kind of delicious concoction I can make in my kitchen.
Oh, that sounds amazing. It sounds rich. I think I might claim one of the tubs of Carnauba wax here. See what the heck that is.
That sounds like a delicious kind of wax.
So what should viewers do if they'd like us to code up something else here on Serverless Toolbox?
So if you have questions about what we built here, questions about connecting Sheets to Cloud Run or Cloud Run in general, or you have an idea of something else you'd like to see us build end-to-end like this to kind of go through all of the steps, please leave a comment. We will check those. We love hearing from you and seeing what you think and helping you out.
Excellent. Best of luck. See you next time.